Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This has been an edifying, if often heated conversation we're having today, and I think it's actually befitting. The First Amendment and the Speech and Debate Clause, we are the world's greatest multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-religious constitutional democracy. And it's not easy. The far more common destiny for countries with different ethnic and racial groups is one of tribal violence and racial apartheid and ceaseless ethnic conflict. So we're getting there. And we have different approaches to how to do it. Some of our colleagues have somewhat dabbled in the language of race silence now, not talking about the past, not talking about what we've gone through, and everything will be all right. Well, that was definitely not the position of the radical Republicans who led us through the Civil War and the Reconstruction period. They passed all kinds of race-conscious legislation in the Reconstruction period. They passed the Freedmen's Bureau with the explicit provision of resources for the purposes of transfer to the recently emancipated black population. The radical Republicans led Congress in passing legislation to establish schools for black people, not integrated schools, but schools for black children, explicitly race-conscious, because they understood that the meaning of the 14th Amendment and equal protection and the Reconstruction legislation was not just to create some sterile notion of colorblindness, which was not in the 14th Amendment or any of the debates about it. It was to actually help people get up after centuries of oppression, as my colleagues have described it, after centuries of violence and dispossession and legalized slavery and subjugation and control. So we have a difference now, I think, substantively about whether it's best to deliberately and consciously open government up, and not just to black people and Latino people, but open it up to other people who've been traditionally left out, including veterans, including people in rural areas. Your legislation would overturn all the executive orders that deliberately try to get the government just to think about getting applicants in the door who come from traditionally disfavored and discriminated against communities. But we understand, all right, we've got an honest difference of opinion about that. But I want to go back to what Mr. Moskowitz was saying, which is even if we disagree about the validity or the utility of these programs, and we think that they've been very successful in terms of opening the government up to the whole country and being very effective and productive for America. But even if we disagree about that, and we're going to change the program, this language is intolerable, which says that people who've worked in those programs have lesser rights than anybody else who's worked for the people of the United States in our federal government. So my amendment would lift the bill's egregious ban on transferring, redesignating, or reassigning employees who work in one of these offices that gets eliminated by the bill. In other words, if we eliminate this language, we treat them like any other federal worker whose job has been eliminated by virtue of federal action. So I think that sends a far better statement about the motivations and the purposes of this legislation, and I think this is one that everybody should be able to agree to. And with that, I submit it to the wisdom of the committee. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.